Hi, welcome to Navigators. I'm technically Alex, and my guest this episode is Naaackers, a longtime Twitch streamer. And with that out of the way, because we both hate intros, let's dive into who Naaackers is, what he's all about, what his content's about. Obviously, I have some questions. Hopefully, he's got some answers. So Naaackers, why don't you give us, the elevator pitch of you?
So first of all, my new name is now Navigator Naaackers because I just looked up at the call and I saw that. I'm like, oh man, that looks real good right next to each other. But yeah, hi, my name is Naaackers. My real name is Nick. I'm a streamer, sort of kind of a YouTuber, and I can officially call myself a TikToker now because I make content on TikTok. But in general, I'm somebody who... I am a tech addict. I work in IT. I manage a Naaack for an MSP. And for my content, I pretty much do tech news, tech education, DIY projects. And, the other half of me is kind of like podcasting, like conversations like we're doing now. I love sitting down with people, all different walks of life within the tech and streaming space and just documenting those conversations. So heavy into tech education, tech news, projects, crafting. I'm a craftsman. I like building. I like 3D printing. I like building with wood. I like wood a lot. And that's me in a nutshell.
Well, I'm really honored to have you because I've been following you for years. And I think part of what made me want to interview you for this show is that unlike a lot of content creators in our space, I think you acknowledge sort of your own shortcomings in a very public way. And I think you're also really gifted at what you do and that you're like a really entertaining streamer. And for me to say that, I think says a lot because I honestly do not watch a lot of Twitch. Yeah. Over the years, I've been doing content creation off and on YouTube, Twitch, whatever platforms out there since like 2008. And for me, nothing has ever really stuck. I've always kind of built up a little following. Like my Twitter's, fairly popular for the stuff I've done, but I've never gotten to the point where, I'm streaming to 25 or 50 viewers a night or making content on TikTok that's getting thousands of views. And obviously you are, but at the same time, I think you are very open about the fact that you're not like an astronomical success on Twitch or that like, you're not like, Mr. Big Shot Twitch streamer. You are like the local entertainment of Twitch. You are the I
love that.
I know it's like you're like a down to earth streamer, right? You are a streamer for the people. And I guess my first question to you is, how do you balance having confidence in being a creative person or a content creator? You're obviously good at it to a certain extent. How do you balance that with having like that feeling that you like lack authority because you're not huge, or that you're not like, because your numbers aren't like always going up, that like, how do you reconcile that feeling with like giving people advice about how to improve their streams? Because that's a huge aspect of your, at least social media content that I've seen.
Yeah. And giving advice is so hard. And it's not because there's such a little chance that you're going to make it as a creator, right? But it truly is that everybody's situation is completely different. And the things that we as content veterans preach is that it's not always about what you do. It's also about when you do it. And like, it's almost like when and if, right? There's so many different factors that come into play. So for me personally, when, being open and being openly vulnerable about my shortcomings, it makes it easier for me to swallow, right? Because a lot of the premise of social media and what we grew up with social media was with Facebook and Instagram, it was post the highlights of your life. Like everything on social media was post the highs, leave out the lows. Even if you weren't embellishing your life, you were still making it look like everything was great all the time. And I think what streamers have learned really, really early on is that presenting yourself that way on social media is just like, it's a recipe for disaster. It's the worst way to go about it. And as you most likely know, just like any other streamer knows, it is one of the most criticized hobbies that you can have because of how often you're putting yourself out there, right? With like a YouTube video, you maybe have like a 10-minute video every week. Let's say if you're like a decent YouTuber. When you're streaming on Twitch, you are open for criticism and actively reading live feedback for 4 to 6 hours a day, right? If you're like only 20-year-olds can stream 6 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
For 6 days a week. So being openly vulnerable with my insecurities and my shortcomings, not only does it make me feel more comfortable. Do you remember at the end of 8 Mile where the final rap battle, Eminem just makes fun of himself for the entire thing?
Yeah.
And then the other dude's like, well, shit, can we swear?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. What do I say? And he just walks off. Spoiler alert for 8 Mile. If you make fun of yourself and you highlight all of your shortcomings, it's really hard for people to make fun of you. And when they do make fun of you, it's like, I already did that. Like, come up with something else. So that's a really, I just knew that was important. When I started creating content and as I started to get more comfortable, I knew that being vulnerable and being able to make fun of yourself was important for me to be able to exist in this space without constantly getting down by people ragging on me or the views not coming through. It just made that a lot easier.
How long were you doing this for before you sort of realized or came to grips with the fact that being vulnerable isn't a weakness? It's like, part of what makes doing this enjoyable for you, I guess.
I kind of see myself as I sort of streamed as two different people. There was an analogy that I came up with when I was doing a podcast one time where like you as the streamer are a Tootsie Pop. And every time you stream or every time you create a piece of content, that's a lick of the Tootsie Pop. And that outer candy shell is your personality protector. It is the not real, not authentic version of yourself. Because like when you're sitting in front of a camera for the first time with a microphone and you're live, it's almost impossible to be yourself unless you're incredibly gifted. And as time goes on and people keep licking you to get to your center, your real self comes out. You become comfortable. You find yourself as a creator. It's almost kind of like your live personality is hidden at the beginning, and you're kind of, as you're creating content, you're finding yourself. So it probably wasn't until the 2 or 3 year mark where I became unbelievably comfortable to the part where like I could like pull up my shirt and stick my belly out and do like belly rolls or like fart into the mic, right? Like everybody farts. Everybody picks their nose. And why can't it be when there's a camera on me? So it took a good bit. Like when I go back and I look at my VODs from early content, it is quite apparent that I was a terrible streamer at first, dude. I was so bad.
I mean, we got to start somewhere. And I think you raised a really interesting point about like the shell we wrap ourselves in to protect ourselves and to present a better version of ourselves. And obviously, that's a lot due to the fact that we're people that grew up in the basically the beginning of social media. And back then it was like, Facebook didn't have just like a blank text field for you to post in. It was like, what's on your mind? Or, it was sort of declarative statements about your current status. It was a status update. And when Instagram came out, it really became about glorifying like your daily meal, your workout routine, where you're going on vacation and all this stuff. And it seems like social media and content creation in general has really steered towards documenting like excess and that candy shell more than the deeper, darker thing. And I think, part of that's like presentational. Like it would be really boring if someone just sat in front of a camera all the time and was like, today I'm really sad and this is why. But it would be more interesting, if someone was like, I'm sad and here's a vlog about why, where they take snippets of their day and they cut them together to give you a narrative about their daily routine that paints a big, you know what I mean? And it's like show, don't tell.
Yep.
When you look at other streamers on Twitch, YouTube, whatever, it's very obvious that they put on a character like Dr. Disrespect. Do you think that them being so out there with their character and so insulated with the real person behind the character, Dr. Disrespect, he's a pillar of the streaming community for his production value and his commitment to his character. And I think a lot of that obviously hinges on him being so over the top all the time and so almost toxic, but in like an entertaining and interesting way. Do you think that creators like that should also be vulnerable?
So that's such like a multi-layer question, because one, you have to, for me, I have to decide whether or not I think Dr. Disrespect is Guy or if Dr. Disrespect is Dr. Disrespect.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think Dr. Disrespect is a character. I think Dr. Disrespect is an emphasized version of his personality.
It honestly wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. So like he says that he's super shy, but that he grew up being a class clown. And maybe it kind of fades in and out of, because like, do I think he goes into like kitchen and he's like, Dr. Disrespect's ready to eat. Like, I'm double blockbuster champion, right? Like, he doesn't act that way, but you have to have a sense of that type of ego in order to embellish it so well. Yeah. So it makes me think, he's not Dr. Disrespect all the time. So that's like layer one is defining whether or not I think he and his character are separate. And then number two is the mental damage that putting yourself into a box so that a caricaturized version of yourself can bloom. I wonder what that does long term, right? Like how long can you stuff yourself into a hole and present yourself as somebody else until you're like, oh my God, I need to get out. I need to get out of this shell. And of course, it's incredibly entertaining for everybody watching. And you're also raking in tens of millions of dollars. So it probably doesn't sting that bad, but it makes me think about that too.
I asked that because when Twitch started off, it wasn't called Twitch. It was Justin TV, right? And the whole idea was kind of novel. It was, record yourself live for an audience all the time. Like, what are you doing? Oh, you're in the kitchen? Okay, hop on Justin TV and maybe do a cooking stream or something. And, there is a long history of live streaming where, like, people have done projects like, I forget what his name is, but basically there's a guy that bought a warehouse in New York City and invited just, random people to come basically live there full time while being live streamed and recorded 24/7 everywhere they went. They had like a gun range, they had sleeping quarters. Like, it was really, there's a documentary on Netflix. If I can remember it, I'll put a link to it in the description and I'll send it to you. But
please do.
It is it's really interesting because that was like one of the first IRL streams before Twitch was even a thing. And then I think a lot of the content creators that rose to prominence on Twitch were people like Shroud, Ninja, Summit, people that were more known for just being like normal human beings. Yeah. And as Twitch has grown in popularity and diversified beyond gaming, it's really been inundated with creators that are characters like Dr. Disrespect. And, I think people in a lot of ways look at Twitch as like, not like a puritanical, like Garden of Eden where like people are real on Twitch. Like, obviously there's plenty of people before and after the rise to prominence of Twitch that are just there for the paycheck, or they're putting on a show and they're not genuine. Do you think characters like Dr. Disrespect hurt the platform because they're not genuine with who they are? Like, obviously, I think Dr. Disrespect in this specific instance is probably a bad example of what I'm talking about because he's such a character, right?
Right.
But there are so many creators, and I don't mean to drag any, I want to be very clear about this. This is not me lobbing an opinion or anything, but Valkyrie, right? She is a YouTube streamer, and she recently launched a product line called Reflect. And their big claim is that it blocks the blue light that your monitor emits, which is close to the wavelength of UV light, which is proven to cause skin damage. So there's some concern that blue light, and obviously you're currently getting skin cancer right now based on the color of your room. But so everyone took to that and was like, okay, this is ridiculous, right? Blue light is provably safe, and there are plenty of studies that show that it has therapeutic benefits when applied properly. And regardless, the amount of light coming off your monitor isn't enough to cause any sort of damage, regardless of what light it's emitting, unless it's emitting like super powerful UV light, like the sun.
Yep.
But I think it exposed something about Valkyrie, and this is something that happens to a lot of content creators, where they put on this show for years, right? Like with Valkyrie launching Reflect, it was like a YouTube streamer coming into the cosmetics industry who wants to improve things for gamers by giving them a product that will physically improve the quality of their life. But as it turns out, she's basically just an influencer some company hired to market their product by branding it with her name and likeness and all this other stuff. And at this point, because of the backlash, because they won't publish stuff, she kind of stepped away from it. And I think it kind of chipped away at the facade Valkyrie puts up. And not to say that it's disingenuous to have a facade. Like, obviously, everyone presents a certain version of themselves to the world. Internally, we're all different people than what you see. But I think, that's one of the examples of it actually being beneficial to a certain extent, because it showed that she's ethical, that she has moral beliefs about the value of like putting her name on a product she can endorse, like stuff like that. But for other creators, it doesn't turn out so well. Like recently, Gus Johnson was in the YouTube drama headlines because of a huge ordeal he had with his girlfriend and a troublesome pregnancy, blah, blah, blah. And, speaking as someone that's watched Gus Johnson for years, I really enjoyed his content, and I never expected the situation he currently finds himself in to be a thing that I would be reading about Gus Johnson being in.
Right.
And obviously he put up the facade, and like the only way we really engaged with him as a person was through his content, and that's filtered and whatever. And I mean, he's in a can of worms right now. And the same thing happened to like Boogie 2998 and so many other content creators where like they project this certain persona through their content, which is obviously heavily edited, even though it doesn't feel like it, because they're able to tap into that vulnerability and that genuine feeling when they, address the camera. And it's what people tune into them for. And then when the facade breaks, it's like, holy shit, like this person's completely different.
Yeah. So
what do you think of like when a streamer or content creator does sort of get their facade broken down externally, right? Like it is very rare that a content creator will come out and say for their own sake, like, hey, listen, I've been doing this for a long time and I'm going to drop the facade now just because I feel like I'm tired of it. It's mostly like, hey, turns out this guy's a bad dude who does bad stuff, or like, this person doesn't know what they're talking. Like, what do you think of when that happens?
So to answer your first question regarding, do you think that having characters on the platform hurts the platform? I think there's a yes and a no. When it's somebody who's Dr. Disrespect and they are so obviously blowing things up to play a character, I think if it's entertainment and it's not hurting anybody, I personally don't think that it reflects bad on the platform. Reflect. Hashtag reflect.
Jesus Christ.
But when you have somebody who maybe isn't visually playing a character, but they are hiding their aggression and their toxicity behind the facade of a character, that's when I think it's bad. Dr. Disrespect used to go to people's Twitters, go to people's Twitches, bring up their profile pages, make fun of the way that they looked. And yeah, that's great for everybody at the party, but for the person that's getting made fun of, that sucks. And I'm glad that he doesn't do that anymore, because that was always one of my biggest butt puckers about him was such a great entertainer, but I felt like when his character faded and he got really angry or he got frustrated, the toxic part of him came out. And it's kind of hard for me to pin toxicity as a genuine trait of his when he always talks about being so shy and kind of how timid he acts when he's not in character. But it makes you think, did the popularity give you that personality trait? Did the power give you that personality trait? Because I've personally seen and experienced what popularity can do to somebody, and how it completely changes them. And it's not necessarily permanent, but I've interacted with enough people that the ego got to them to basically start every day with leave your ego at the fucking door, because if it doesn't kill the people around you, it's gonna eat you from the inside out. But yeah, as far as like the characters and the facades of streamers, it's hard not to get emotional when somebody like Gus Johnson ends up being, I don't want to say a huge piece of shit because I don't know the situation, but like when something comes out and you're like, man, how can somebody who I feel like I resonate with so much, who I enjoy so much, how can they end up being this crappy? And and you'll see people talk about like, don't put content creators on pedestals, don't worship them. It's like, okay, I'm not worshiping them, but I do look up to them because not only do they have traits that I am interested in or that I desire, they genuinely have a positive influence on my life. And when it turns out that positive influence has shit on the inside of the Tootsie Pop, it kind of stings a little. So I honestly, whenever somebody's bummed that something has come out about a creator and it puts them in a bad light, I'm like, I will allow you to feel bad because I know what that feels like.
Yeah. Do you think, because obviously like cancel culture has become a really hot topic of debate, ironically, you know, people are starting to question the efficacy of going after someone for their mistakes or their, you know, bad behavior. The most notable examples of people that have changed are the people that cancellation actually affects.
Sure.
Because like Jenna Marbles is, I think, the perfect example. She was one of YouTube's most prominent figures for over a decade. Like she was around doing YouTube content, like back when Philly D was starting YouTube content, you know, back when like Lisa Nova was popular. And that came with the baggage of Jenna Marbles doing edgy humor that, you know, 10 years later got her in trouble. People were like, listen, you know, you might be this really wholesome, loving human being today, but you also made this video that I found offensive 10 years ago, and it's still up on your channel, and that's kind of problematic or whatever. If you grew up before the 2000s, like if you were a kid before the 2000s, you treated the internet like this nebulous thing where no one could identify you. You were private. You know, you could just be your screen name and no one would care. You know, in 20 years, the whole internet would be gone anyway, so who cares? And then as it turns out, like a lot of people, they've either, you know, turned their corner or they're actively still being like bad on the inside, but good on the outside. And paying attention to all this stuff, have you seen a situation where the person getting canceled, it affected them because they had changed? Like, what do you think of when someone gets canceled, right? Like Kevin Spacey. And while his career might be over, him as a person is probably doing just fine.
Right.
What do you think of the creators, you know, the repercussions hit them hard and effectively ended their careers and their like whole online presence? Like Jenna Marbles is just gone now. Like the only way anyone knows anything about her is through her boyfriend or fiance. And
But that was by her choice, right?
Yeah, like, no, and that's the thing. It was she didn't have to go, I think. She is the one example of someone getting canceled who did it to themselves, like the canceling part, not the, you know, you're bad part. She did it to herself, and she removed herself from the internet to prevent from causing more harm by association with her old content. But I mean, we've seen plenty of creators have like accusations made against them or have said and done things in the past that really don't reflect who they are today.
Yeah.
And even those folks have had like serious repercussions. Do you think like making Twitch content, being live all the time, is something that like is helping educate people on how they should behave online, right? Because like you were talking about, and I mean, I'm interested to follow up on this in a second, but you were talking about how when you're a Twitch streamer, everything you do is in front of people all the time. Like you're constantly getting live feedback, you know, you're getting clipped, you're getting probably screen recorded half the time. Like there is a huge difference between having your content edited and being live.
Right.
I'm interested to know, how do you keep in mind like, okay, listen, I'm live, so I can't say the thing that I really want to say, or I'm going to pump the brakes on this train of thought, or this conversation is going off the rails. I'm going to put a stop to it or change the topic for the benefit of not putting something out into the world that I don't think represents me as a person. Like, how does that process work for you?
I rarely pump the brakes nowadays. Like before we got started, there's very little that is off topic for me. As far as, you know, the things I'm willing to talk about, the things I'm comfortable with, I'm comfortable with talking about anything. There have been, like, through my come up, like you said, if you grew up on the internet, you were like Mr. Anonymous who would do and say anything just to get a rise out of people. And as I progress as a streamer, when I started out, it was like, don't care what you say, you know, if you hurt people's feelings, whatever. And I'm not talking about like saying like racist or derogatory things, right? Just like edgy jokes, you know, or calling people the R word or the F word, which was normal vocabulary for everybody. You know, like in high school, there was nobody saying you shouldn't say that word. It was everybody said it. And so as I've been on Twitch longer and longer, when I go to, you know, insult somebody, or I go to like, if I think of something, I'm constantly thinking, okay, how can this be interpreted? And it's not that I'm responsible for how somebody interprets something. Is saying this really worth the possible hurt that I could cause? Right. And I would say probably like 3 or 4 years ago was when I was like, you know what? I need to realize that I live in a different world now. And the things that I said and the jokes that I made growing up are not appropriate anymore. And you just need to leave them behind. But because you grew up, sometimes your brain just goes to saying something like saying the R word or saying the F word because you just grew up saying it. And you're like, okay, why is it even in my brain still? Yeah. So definitely in the later years of streaming, it was, you know what, being edgy and being quick and witty and mean and toxic. It's a dopamine hit. It feels great in the moment and everybody laughs when you're making fun of, you know, Susie Q. But I have learned in my later years, pausing, thinking about what I want to say and thinking about the effect of when it comes out of my mouth has now become more important for me.
I've noticed this thing globally, like as a society, like humanity is becoming more tolerant and less accepting of hatred or bigotry or, you know, discrimination. And I think cancellation or people trying to hold other people accountable for things they say or do, I think it is part of this trend of like, we could all be better people. As a streamer, you, I'm sure, see plenty of harassment on the platform, right? Like obviously hate raids were a huge and still are a huge problem on Twitch.
Yep. And
I'm curious because you'll have to forgive me, I'm not super familiar with the whole thing, but I know your girlfriend at one point was a Twitch streamer or was a content creator in some regard and stopped. And my recollection is that she stopped because it's just like she's putting herself out there and it makes you vulnerable to harassment, and being a woman on the internet is obviously like, it's a recipe for disaster, which is incredibly unfortunate and disgusting, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as a content creator that's, persisted through, I'm sure you've gotten your fair share of harassment thrown at you, or you just see it enough that it wears you down. Like I see it on Twitch and Twitter and TikTok, especially right now, so much that it just makes me, as a user, not want to engage with the platform anymore.
Yep.
Could you elaborate like on your girlfriend's content creator journey and maybe anything that her experience informed your content creation with?
Sure. Yeah. She got started on the wrong foot. Basically, she had a boyfriend say, "You should start streaming on Twitch. Girls make a lot of money."
Yeah.
Like that was how it started for her. So money and attention was like the focus, like from the get-go, which was like complete polar opposite to how I started streaming on Twitch. And through gaining popularity, experiencing all the harassment, the sexual harassment, and then, she unfortunately met a lot of really, really two-faced people. And over time, when those two-faced people started to reveal themselves, she's just like, you know what? I hate everything about this. I hate, getting dressed up and putting on makeup in order to be presentable for people that I don't fucking care about. Right?
Yeah.
I hate people always butting in with their opinion. I hate posting on social media, and she understands the dopamine addiction that social media and posting and likes and engagement all brings, and she has a really hard time separating herself from that. So she realized after a while that being a Twitch streamer was not advantageous at all. It was not beneficial to her as a person. She's like, you know what? I'm all done. I'm just going to step away from it. And she doesn't care to create content about anything ever. She wants to be so far away from creating content because she saw kind of what that does to a person and what it does to the people around you. And when I get into these types of conversations with people on stream, I always say a large portion of being a creator is having a lifestyle and a personality that fits being a content creator. Somebody can comment, you have a double chin and you're fat all day long. And I'm just like, okay, cool. So anyways, this new 1440p monitor that I just got, right? A lot of people can't put up that shield and defend from that. And a lot of people just aren't fit for being in this seat, being in the hot seat, being the center of attention. And for a lot of people, it always makes me laugh when people say, dude, Twitch is just like high school. It's like, the world is like high school. High school just continued. It never ended. High school is how real world works. It's a popularity contest. The slime balls get ahead. There's clicks everywhere, and you're constantly graded no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, she just, after being a streamer for 3 to 4 years and experiencing all the negative sides of it, she just knew that it wasn't for her anymore, and she hated it. She just hated it near the end.
A lot of people hear about the kind of harassment women are subjected to online, whether it's when they're gaming, privately, when they're creating content. There is a type of harassment that women are subjected to that men just aren't. And it's constant. Yep. It's like brutal, and it's often vicious and sexual and weird. It's very rare that I get to talk to someone that has experienced it in such close proximity without being a woman, right? Like most of us don't know a content creator that got so fed up with creating content because of stuff like that they quit. And do you think that gives you sort of a deeper or a unique perspective into the problem? So many creators are like, the solution to ending harassment towards women in gaming is X, Y, or Z. Personally, I always think I thought of it more as like a social issue where we just have to change how people perceive, gender and women, sexuality, all this stuff. Like, obviously like the whole OnlyFans disaster that they went through a couple months ago where they were like, no more sex workers on our platform was like, It was eye-opening for just how incredibly toxic the internet is to sex workers, two men and women that do that for a living. But like, it also, I think, made me refocus my attention on the fact that in general, like, regardless of what you do, if you're a woman, being on the internet is harder than it is if you're a man.
100%. Yeah.
Does her experience in your close proximity to it and basically seeing it almost firsthand, do you think that gives you sort of a better perspective than the people saying like, hey, we should do this?
Sort of, kind of. It's experiencing that firsthand and existing in that same group and experiencing those same people. It goes back to one of the first topics that we talked about, like not letting numbers get to your head, and ego, and vulnerability, and experiencing people that have a facade, that have ulterior motives and hidden agendas. It just made me be super aware of how I approach people and how I interact with people, to just always be upfront as possible, to, if there is a side agenda, to make it known. I'm sure that you've seen plenty of people online talk about how fake streamers are, like, as a whole. Like, all streamers are fake. They're all two-faced. They're all just trying to get theirs. And once I became really aware of how I was treating people and being authentic with how I approach them, I started seeing less and less fake people. Like, they just sort of filter themselves out. And in my opinion, like, in the same way real recognize real, like, fake is attracted to fake.
Yeah.
And I think when you get a bunch of those people together and they're all just living on the American streaming dream, and everyone's like, it's like this group project that we're all just going up and we're all benefiting. And it's whenever I see some creator post a milestone on Twitter, and then I see like all of these massive Twitch streamers and content creators that are all just, oh my God, you're like a sister to me. I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. I can't wait. And I wonder how many of those relationships are actually that thick on the other side, the side that we can't see.
Yeah.
Because like, I know what it's like to interact with people on social media that I'm genuinely interested with, but I don't have any sort of personal relationship whatsoever.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to distinguish those a little bit. Did you see my tweet about creators? It was regarding like people saying, don't waste time on people that don't make time for you. Right? Like, there has to be an even balance of relationship in order for us to continue being friends.
I didn't see the tweet, but I appreciate the sentiment a lot.
Okay. So the tweet was how I disagreed that it needs to be like both people need to reach out an equal amount. It was illuminating the fact that not everybody has the capacity to be the one to reach out.
Yeah.
To remember your birthdays, to remember your holidays, when you're really down. Because, it's never convenient to reach out to somebody who is having a really hard time, right? Because there's always something going on in your own life that you're like, how am I supposed to reach out and be a shoulder for somebody when I'm crumbling in my own kingdom?
Yeah.
And to me, in my opinion, it takes a very, very special person to be the one that's always reaching out, always checking up on people, having people's backs. That's just not a trait that everybody carries from birth. And so my tweet was just along the lines of, I think we need to be a little bit more accepting of people's free time and their ability to be a shoulder to cry on, because not only is it an availability thing, it's a personality thing, and not everybody can hold the weight of their colleagues' problems. Like, some people, their own problems are enough to weigh them down.
Yeah. And
I just think people that got to be a little bit more cognizant of that, instead of being like, oh, these people haven't checked up on me in 3 months, so I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I don't think it's beneficial holding a relationship that way.
One of the things that I've seen in your content, specifically on social media, a lot of content creators on social media who do advice or give out like technical information about like how to set up OBS or something, they definitely approach it from like this like facade of bullshit, right? Like, where, hey, like, and it's interesting because a lot of the friends that I have in the space are you, Epos Fox, like folks that I call tech and they call themselves that, tech educators rather than like tech influencers or personalities. Like, I think Linus Tech Tips, that whole channel is like more about tech education than it is reviewing tech.
And they integrate vlogs and projects with education, which is why I've been a fan of Linus and Tech Quickie and now Mac Address.
Yeah.
Their new Mac Focus channel I've absolutely loved.
Something you do really well on your social media in particular is you kind of like use humor and candor. Like, you're very upfront, you're very vulnerable, you're very open about who you are. You use that in combination with like humor to cut through the bullshit almost. The information you give to people on TikTok regarding like, OBS settings or like how to stream in a specific way or do a specific thing is always just as accurate and relevant as the streamers or the content creators are like, you need to follow these 5 simple steps to reach financial freedom via Twitch stream. Like, it's the same advice in a lot of ways. Like, you're like, hey, listen, if you want to have a good stream and you want to be a successful streamer, I can't give you the secret sauce, but like, if your audio and video suck, it's not going to work out. And like, you've created a stream wiki. It's literally called Stream Wiki that breaks down like all of the relevant technical information for people. It's part of what attracts me to your content, especially on TikTok, is that you're just, I don't know if it's a bias or not. I don't know if it's because I know a little bit about you and I've been following you for a long time and I've seen you be who you are on TikTok everywhere else forever. But it's clearly resonated with some people on TikTok because you've talked about this. TikTok is like your fastest growing platform experience ever. Yep. What has that been like where like you're just kind of being you and it finally clicks on a platform, right? Because like I said at the start, like you're a local content creator. You're averaging like not astronomically low numbers. Like, that's ridiculous. I think you do quite well on Twitch, especially given the fact that you're not like
top 1%.
Yeah, but exactly. But like on TikTok, I think by comparison, it's like an astronomically more successful platform for you as a creator in a lot of ways. What has that been like, being like, holy shit, like it finally clicked?
Yeah, that has been incredibly eye-opening, but also it's been humbling and also sort of a reality check, because I wonder, when TikTok changes how they do things, is my way going to succeed? So you got to think like, okay, so when TikTok changes their algorithm and the things that people like watching now aren't what they like watching anymore, am I going to have the tenacity to transform my content a different way to maintain growth on the platform? And to a point, I understand that Twitch discovery sucks ass and it's really, really difficult to grow. There are still people that are making it work somehow. Yeah. And it makes you think, okay, how are they doing that? And it's just about navigating the different ways, the different ways to grow through other platforms as well. So growing on TikTok has been crazy. It's been fun. It's been scary at the same time, because like it's crazy to get your content out in front of so many eyes at once, because I've gotten so much more negativity and criticism on TikTok compared to any other platform. Yeah. Because I think TikTok really maintains that 2005 Xbox Live, I'm just a username kind of vibe, where people will say terrible things. People will get up in arms and super frustrated and angry and hateful, and then you just never see them again. Yeah. And you know, it's a little worrisome, but yeah, it's just like I started creating stuff on that platform, and then it just clicked. Whatever I was doing, my humor, my cadence, it's just working on that platform, and that's why I've shifted so much time into creating content for it, because I feel like if I can learn how TikTok works and how I can use its platform to my benefit, then I should be able to figure out other platforms too. And it's just about kind of like doing them in succession.
My experience with TikTok has been really mixed. It's so incredible how many different disparate approaches to content creation work on TikTok, right? Yes. And for me, like I've tried making it work, and I'm not putting a lot of effort into it. You know, I'm not editing, I'm not recording on a real camera and then posting it on TikTok. I put a lot of effort into talking about politics, and something I started seeing on my content was people just come out of nowhere with like, you're a communist. And it would be on a video where I'm talking about like how we should raise the minimum wage because wages across every job sector in America are too low, except if you're like the CEO of a company and then you're a billionaire. And it's like it's one of those things where like in my head I'm like, okay, this benefits everyone. If we raised wages tomorrow in America, if we gave everyone free healthcare tomorrow, everything would be better. Like it doesn't matter who you are. I'm not discriminating based on your income or like your status in life. I'm just saying like everyone gets more. And I got like some critical comments that were like, you're just a commie scumbag, you don't understand, you're blah blah. And getting exposed to that opened my eyes to how prevalent it is on TikTok as a whole. Like every TikTok video, the comments section is almost singularly devoted to telling the person making the content what they did wrong, whether it's DIY, comedy, informative video about how to put a diaper on a kid. Like there's always at least one comment towards the top of the comment stack that's like, you did this wrong. It really came to a head for me recently because I actually liked looking at the comments on some content, it'd be like more informative or the creator would do follow-ups. And now I just like go out of my way to avoid it. And the thing that kicked me off the comments, like for everyone, like I'm not going back, is I was scrolling on my For You page and a porn star was talking about how she got a breast reduction surgery. And ever since that happened, there's been this flood of fans of hers that are like, I like the old so-and-so, I prefer her before this. And she was talking about how like, you need to stop doing that because 1, it's not your business. 2, it's harassment. And 3, the people paying her to be in films see those kinds of comments and are like, she's not a desirable property anymore. Like people don't want to watch her because she's different and we might not hire her because of it. The first comment was like, well, actually you're wrong because in the job that you're doing, it's all about your body and how people perceive it. And you changed it, so of course people aren't going to like it. I saw that comment and I was like, I replied to it. It's one of the rare instances where I actually reply to a TikTok comment. And I said, who the fuck are you to tell someone what they should look like? Like, she's not your wife, dude. Why do you think TikTok is like that? Where you have all of this crazy, amazing content, comedians, DIY, tech influencers, photographers, videographers, doing all sorts of crazy, amazing shit and bringing it to people. And yet the entire platform's comment section seems devoted to shitting on them. Like, what do you think causes that? Like, do you think it's algorithmic? Do you think it's the content delivery system where it's like, it feels, because you're always scrolling, it's very disposable? Like, what is it about TikTok that makes people hate TikTokers?
I definitely think it's algorithmic in the same way that Facebook spun certain wall posts or showed you things to make you feel a certain way. I think TikTok is absolutely doing the same thing in the same way that criticism and drama and conflict drive engagement. I think they just know, right?
Yeah.
It's sad that the top comment would be like the top voted comment would be, well, we like the old you.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, by the way, who you are now, even though you're more comfortable with yourself, yeah, we like the other person better. That sucks. That absolutely sucks. And now on the flip side, not in the body of a woman regard, but when it comes to DIY or when it comes to projects, when I see people saying, hey, you could have done this way or done this better, I like that criticism because it's constructive.
Yeah.
And because there's always room for growth. Even people that have been doing things a certain way for a super long time, I go through those comments and I learn things by people offering other suggestions. But the people are like, you fucked that up. That's the wrong joint. Those are the wrong strings for that guitar. That's like, okay. I also can't get past that.
Yeah.
And to touch on something that you brought up before about like where I stand as a creator and how I define myself. One of the reasons that I built StreamWiki was I wanted somebody to have a place to go when their question is, what are my options? Not what is the right thing to do? What are my options, right? Because like anybody can come out and say, this mic arm is the best mic arm on the market, right? However, as somebody who has a desk that doesn't move, the mounting mechanism does not support desks that are close to the back of the wall, where there are other mic mounts that separate in two pieces and allow you to join them along the backside of the desk. That is a valuable asset to me in a mic arm, but doesn't matter to the majority of people. So whenever I'm tackling content of like what is best or like the new thing, what's good, I'm always coming at it from the angle is what are my options? What are my options and why do I like this because of the differences that it has? Not why is this the best and why does this one suck? The same conversation of like the SM7B is the best microphone. No, it's fucking not.
Yeah.
It's not even close to the best microphone. That's where I stand. Like when I create content, when I'm engaging with people online, when I'm posing myself as an educator and creating content to educate, I try to do my best to not say this is the way because this is the way that I like it and I think it's the best. It's objective, if objective as possible, with kindness and with empathy. Like those are the things that I just try to remind myself over and over again, because the tech space can be so divided and cynical and abrasive.
Yeah.
And going into that, I just knew like I can't feed into that. I can't be just another person like that. And when I changed my content from gaming to tech and just chatting, I was like, if you're going to do this, you have to do this right from the beginning or you're going to fall on your face.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you made a big switch in your content. You were doing mostly gaming content or streams, and you had, your Hot Pockets and Crocs podcast. Is that right? That's right, right?
Crocs and Hot Pockets.
Crocs and Hot Pockets. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm changing the name soon, anyways.
It's a bad name. Screw it. We're starting over.
Yeah.
But you basically took the one thing you did in the minority of, which was talking to the camera, and switched it to the majority of what you do. And that's obviously a big change. And I think a lot of people, when they talk about being a successful content creator, they say, you do it, and then something explodes, right? Something goes viral. And then that's a sign that whatever that viral thing is, you keep doing that forever, right? And for a lot of people, that means, okay, I was really successful when I made this Call of Duty video, so I'm going to make Call of Duty videos forever. Or I was really successful when I reviewed this phone, so now my whole channel is going to be about reviewing phones. And it's really rare to see a content creator go, that's bullshit. I'm going to do what I want to do, algorithm be damned. And you made that decision very clearly to me. Like, the occasional gaming streams that I've caught of yours have been far and few between. And every time I tune in, it's basically just you talking in the chat about maybe some topics you have on the top of your head, or like just engaging with your community in a very different way than I think a lot of IRL streamers do it. But also like that is very different from your previous content, which was much more about the vibe, like, gaming with the bros and having a fun time,
energy and flashing.
Yeah. And it's like a completely different experience. And yet I think I can't speak to this personally because I don't have, your stream dashboard, but right. I think it's been more successful for you than what you were doing in the past.
Yep. Absolutely. My podcasts always did better viewership wise, like almost through the entirety of my podcast. I would always notice viewer retention was better. The amount of viewers that would show up at the beginning was better. And average viewers were just always higher. And it was always a different group of people that were showing up for the podcast compared to the gaming streams. And I looked at those analytics for years and was just like, I haven't hit my spark in gaming yet. That's why the numbers just don't do as good. Ignoring the fact that maybe I should have pursued that type of content way earlier. And to your point about like doing, striking gold and then taking off, thank God I didn't get popular playing Rocket League, right?
Yeah.
Because like I know that I'm possible. I know that I'm able to endure an extreme plateau of trying, failing. I don't know if I would be able to survive getting super popular and then completely falling off and just going right back down. So I'm lucky in a way that Twitch has treated me so poorly with viewership and discovery, because it has allowed me to continue to search for myself and the things that I love creating content about, to finally land here 8 years later.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think I was gonna be this into tech. I knew I enjoyed tech 8 years ago, but nowhere near what I love now about audio and video and production. And I also didn't think I enjoyed talking to people as much as I do now, right? Like all of the reasons that my girlfriend disliked content creation, about like building relationships with people. Like she doesn't care about going out and meeting people or like building connections with people online, where I see an immense value in talking to people gives me energy, like learning about people, learning what makes them tick, and hearing about what they specialize in. I think that's so incredibly valuable to me as a person. So I just continue to pursue that.
Yeah.
I feel lucky that I have struggled for so long, because I've just learned so much, and I finally landed here where I'm starting to see like Twitter has been picking up, TikTok has been picking up, and then like sometimes when I go live, I'll see 20 people in chat within the first 5 minutes, and that just didn't happen to me before. It was always like a slow trickle, and I think that's a result of me changing my content, but B, I think that's also creating content with purpose, having subjects and topics for things that we're going to discuss. And then also, you know, when you spend 3 to 4 hours directly communicating with community, it's way easier for people to stick around and chat.
Has the shift in content changed your personal free time behavior? Like, do you game less because you stream less games?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And not only do I game less because I'm not streaming, because I'm preparing more for streams, and because I'm preparing other content, there's no free time for gaming. Yeah. Like at all.
Do you miss it? Like, do you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Not gaming, it sucks, to be honest. But if I don't feed into like my urge to create other stuff, I know that I'll also probably stop gaming.
Yeah.
Like last year, randomly, I've never cared about Call of Duty ever. And my buddy Vance is like, "Hey, I'm going to download Cold War. Do you want to play it?" I'm like, I don't think I want to play Call of Duty, dude. And then so we started playing Cold War, and then we played Cold War like Friday, Saturday, Sundays for like 6 months straight. I probably dumped like 250 hours into that game and had genuine fun.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of passed, and now I'm not really playing anything. Like we played the Battlefield beta a little bit. I think my girlfriend and I are going to get into playing Ghost Recon Wildlands, which is like one of our like favorite games. And yeah, it's It definitely sucks. My girlfriend's bummed because she plays games almost every other day.
Yeah.
Loves games. And then that's how we met, and one of our favorite pastimes, and I'm just not doing it as much, and it does suck. Yeah.
How is it balancing like being a creator and switching content styles with having a full-time job and like real life relationships and stuff? Because so many content creators, they are basically, that's all they are. They wake up in the morning. They're like, all right, I got to make content. What am I doing? They go out and make it. They release it, and then they go to sleep. And then they wake up next morning. Like they don't have like, I turned 34 this month, and it was like, I thought I was 35. So it was kind of like, oh, relief. I'm like 1 year younger than I thought I was. But when, I had a kid this year, and it's been really eye-opening that like I just don't have time to like even or even the energy to like keep up with, even to a certain extent, my job. Like covering Battlefield this year has been incredibly just like draining, because
Yeah.
I have to compete with people that just, they have nothing else to do in their life. They wake up, they play Battlefield, they talk about Battlefield or Call of Duty or Valorant or CSGO. Like, I am competing with people that live and breathe the thing they are doing. And I'm curious to hear how you are balancing essentially being a full-time content creator and a full-time human being with like a real job and relationships.
Yeah. It is incredibly difficult. I just recently, you've probably heard me talk about this, I quit caffeine, and that was a task in itself. And what I was saying on stream last night in regards to health was that ever since turning like 29, if I do not exercise, eat well, and meditate, I do not have a chance at feeling my normal energized self.
Yeah.
If I lack on any of those, it is almost immediately visible from both internally and externally. And what I've come to realize is that if I am going to sustain having a full-time job, being a content creator, being a boyfriend, and being a friend to the friends that I have to treat my body as best as possible. And so for like the past month, I've just been doing cleanses. I stopped having any alcohol whatsoever during the week, no caffeine, chugging water, like starting my day with fruits and vegetables, and almost an immediate change in my day-to-day life. And that's probably like my 4 year ago streamer self would have laughed at what I'm doing now, but I was able to sustain working 8 to 10 hours a day and then coming home and then streaming 4 to 5 hours, 5 days a week. But that's just not possible. And my professional or career-based responsibilities are multiplied now. Like the things I was responsible for 5 years ago are nowhere near.
Yeah.
Like I'm managing a team now, and it's just such a different level of thought and stress. And being on the phone for 5 hours a day and then coming home and then continuing to talk on stream, that's even difficult.
Yeah.
And is why I have reeled back live streaming as much, because I know at the end of the day that I want to create something successful. Like I know that that's what I want to do. And whether that's being successful in my own skills or creating successful content, I know that that is an aspiration of mine. On the other hand, I know that sacrificing my mental and physical health will never be worth the fame, the success, the admiration, right? It'll never be worth trading your life for that. So my perspective as of right now is, if I can't make something successful by giving it less time and taking the time that I took away from that and focusing it on my health, then I'm not going to make it. Like if I can't do full-time work, have the side gig, and also exercise, eat well, meditate, and be a good boyfriend, then I'm not. It's not going to work out for me, because I'm never going to sacrifice my job or my relationships or my health to just grind for a chance at some limelight.
Yeah, I mean, do you think your willingness to put the well-being of your life and relationships ahead of content creation is because content creation isn't your job? Like a lot of people, I don't think they realize that when you work for yourself, you don't get sick days. You don't get time off.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yep.
You have to work all the time. How does that factor into like your messaging about what you do? Like, because a lot of people saying the things you say about streaming, like how to do it, whatever, they're like either full-time content creators or they're like working for like a tech blog or something. Like, how does your life experience and your work balance experience factor into what you do?
My day job and what kind of day I have there so heavily influences how I perform as a content creator. And that's kind of like the biggest butt pucker is when you are like a level 1 tech and you're just break fix and you're swapping hard drives, right? You start at 8 and you go home at 5.
Yeah.
And you have a decent amount of energy and you're able to move forward with your content shit because your life allows you to. The issue with where I'm at with my career is I'm now in the management part where I'm thinking about things all of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm starting at 7 and I'm ending at 6 and I'm responsible for other people. And I wield the weight of our customers' livelihoods. Like if we don't do our job to secure their technological infrastructure, they can lose money and you could affect their families. Like that is a subconscious trickle down effect of working in IT. But being in IT and being around the hardware, it just further invigorates my love for the craft, like for not only for being a good customer representative, like a customer support representative, because I enjoy being around and working with people. My tech knowledge advances, being a creator, and actually one of the main reasons why I'm so glad to shift into the tech side of content creation is I'm now putting myself in positions where I can try out hardware and learn and be around other people who are just as proficient or more proficient in the skills that I'm looking to acquire. And it's just about like being in the environment, being in the weeds and being around people is the thing that drives me. Knowing that I can fuck off of content creation and still have a house is important to me. Like I don't have a dream of being a full-time streamer. I don't have a dream of being a full-time YouTuber. My dream is to have a sustainable household, be able to travel, still have fun, but also like express myself creatively through technology and through content creation. Because I've seen what being a content creator has done positive for me over the past 8 years. And I see the value in how content creation connects people, and also how much I have learned from just being involved in content. So that's kind of how they tie together for me.
I don't know if it's really a question or not, but like, has your content, in your observation, affected people the way you intend or want to see happen? Like, when you say X and then you see people practicing X, what is that like for you?
That's so fulfilling. And I don't like toxicity, right? But when it started getting to the point where every time somebody would make a stream in 936p TikTok, I would get tagged like mad because like people know the number one thing that I shit on is people trying to stream to 936p to Twitch. Yeah. And to know that like my approach of educating while not trying to be a dictator about it and also including comedy is resonating with people. And there's so many things that I've learned from Gary Vee that I apply to content creation. And one of them is acknowledging both the good and the bad comments and not letting either of them dictate what you're doing. So like seeing people go, "Oh, you're so smart, you're so good at this, you know so much," and being like, "Okay, sure, but no, I don't," and keep like striving forward. And so when I see the positive reinforcement or the positive feedback, I have to acknowledge it and then take a step back and go, "Okay, that was cool, but focus." Yeah. Don't let that get to you. Keep the course and try and just stay true to what you're doing.
I want to get your perspective on something because I've noticed at least that the most successful content creators, at least in the tech space, are folks like Austin Evans and Marquise Brownlee and Linus Tech Tips. For however successful they are obviously one of the biggest tech channels around. Unbox Therapy gets the same kind of views that they do. And it's just, a dude sitting in the bat cave waxing poetic about a product he doesn't understand. What do you think about like long-term the viability of platforms are going to be like when it's like you have people like Linus Tech Tips, Wendell from Level 1 Techs, you, Epos, other creators, really educating people. And that's the focus of their content versus, the Austin Evans of the world where they're just like, hey guys, today we're looking at this dope product that's dope and you should buy it because it's dope. And that's not to say that like Austin or MKBHD do that, but like it's something I've seen a lot of in the Mac community. And I've started following like Snazzy Labs and some other, and obviously Linus's Mac channel is something I check in on occasionally. And the thing that gets me about Mac content is that unlike a lot of other tech reviewers, Mac people that are Mac focused want to tell you about how great the product is first. Like they are like excited about Apple release a new product and it's like so well designed and it's so thin and all this stuff. And like they almost repackage Apple's own marketing and contextualize it as a review. And that kind of content is overwhelmingly popular with people. It's frustrating for me because it comes off as really disingenuous or misleading or fake, whatever, when someone says something simple like it's X millimeters thin, right? Because thin is a measure of how thin something is, not how thick it is. And when you're giving a measurement of how thick something is, you should say how thick it is. And when you say thin, that's you trying to obfuscate the fact that it's X millimeters thick, right? And that happens in tech all like in so many different meaningless and insignificant ways, but I see it all the time. And I'm curious what your perspective is on like the sustainability of like tech reviews that are basically just nonsense or like, MKBHD is one of the better tech reviewers out there, especially for phones, because a lot of phone reviewers are just like, Google put out a new phone today and it's amazing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's a phone. Like when Apple puts out a new phone every couple years, it's really amazing because they do something crazy. Like the tri-camera system was super innovative, but ever since they put out the tri-camera system, they've just been making it slightly better. But like every time someone points that out in their video or makes that the focus, like Apple isn't innovating enough, their video gets like, if they're a big channel, maybe 1 million views. But like when someone's like, the new iPhone is super sexy and thin and it's so crispy and blah, 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 they get 5 million views. They get tons more viewership. What do you think the platforms like Twitch and YouTube are going to look like if that holds true? Like if disingenuous sort of marketing content maintains the biggest audience versus more informative stuff like what you do and other creators in the space?
I believe that there is going to be a time where that style of content is just not the focus anymore. In the same way that we don't want to watch Oprah split up by 6 minutes of advertisements to watch an interview of like a staged interview of a comedian, right? Like we want to see an uncut, unedited version of a comedian like doing a monologue that doesn't have the weight of a network, right?
Yes.
Like we want that level of authenticity. At least I do when I'm looking for content. I like Apple News pinging me for things that I'm interested in instead of my mom watching Fox News and hearing about the 19 murders that have happened in the 20 square miles, right? Like, I think just the way that we consume is different. And even though YouTube is a big monopoly, massive, I think there's still so much room for YouTube to change as a platform, right? Like, I'm sure 5 years ago, nobody thought that shorts would be as popular as they are, or that anybody who frequented the YouTube platform would be interested in shorts. When you want to watch long form content, you go to YouTube. Now you use shorts to garner a community in a different way to pull them into your YouTube content. And it's like, who would have thought that that's where we were going? Same thing with Vine, same thing with TikTok. So when it comes to the disingenuous content and like that style, that's why I like Snazzy Labs so much, is because he's been an Apple fan for so long, but is not afraid to call out the bullshit. Like, this was really stupid, or this graph that they used to show to show the differences between performance has no merit or weight to it whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, Snazzy is one of the few
and
people on the Mac space that I watch regularly, specifically because despite the fact that he is very clearly like a fan of Apple and wants Apple to succeed and does the same thing what all Mac reviewers do, where they're like, they want to tell you how great the product is. He is one of the few that is also like, but it sucks. I don't like this. This is bad. It's dumb. Don't do that. Like, he is like, listen, here's the thing. As the perspective of a fan of this company, I am disappointed. And
yep.
I really appreciate that about his content. But you brought up shorts on YouTube, and that's a topic that I find really fascinating because I think the reason, there's two reasons that TikTok is so successful, right? It's the fact that it is an incredible platform for editing content, right? Like when you want to make a TikTok video, you have every tool at your disposal you could possibly imagine. You got AI filters that can cut you out from the background without
green screen.
You've got all sorts of integrations. You've got the ability to just take someone else's content and integrate it directly into your own while still crediting them and linking to them. And so it's not like, predatory. But the other side of it is that when you open the TikTok app for the first time as a new user, right, you will see content that's like Ariana Grande and like, a movie trailer, right? But then you start scrolling, and as soon as you start liking stuff, all of a sudden that For You page becomes for you. You see the content that is relevant to you, and then occasionally they'll show you a video with 4 likes that's garbage, and it's just a head scratcher, right? But like,
I love
the combination of like, it is incredibly easy to create compelling content, and the platform is really good at sending that relevant content or creative content to an audience, is something that people have complained about on YouTube for years, right? People have said the problem with YouTube is that it's hard to make great content and that the platform doesn't respect great content because it doesn't show it to everyone, right? Like you can make the greatest video in the world and put all this production value into it, and it'll get like, no views, but then you just bullshit for 10 minutes about some random topic that you were, passionate about or whatever. And that video gets hundreds of thousands of views. And it's like, there's no, like, if it has always felt like YouTube had this problem where like I'm making great content and not getting acknowledged for it, and it's not getting shared. And it was specifically because YouTube had such limited real estate per page, right? Like they can only show so many video thumbnails. But Shorts is like, hey, it's an endless feed of content. We can show you however many videos you will stick around to scroll through for. And for me as a content creator on YouTube, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, looking at Shorts, right, I see it as a massive opportunity, not just to double dip on the content I'm already creating for Twitter and TikTok, but also as a YouTuber, I now have a brand new tool at my disposal to attract viewers that otherwise might never see my content, specifically because YouTube is going to prioritize more popular content over mine because of the limited real estate of videos on demand.
Yep.
So I'm curious to hear what you think YouTube Shorts is doing. Like, what have you messed with it at all? Like, do you think as someone that's made YouTube content that like you see Shorts as a new opportunity, or is it more like YouTube's playing catch up to TikTok?
I think that so many different things. So one, I think Shorts is an amazing opportunity, right? In the way that you just described, where there's limited real estate. So it's almost like you are on an island and YouTube just built a bridge. And it's not necessarily that like you can fucking roller coaster tycoon and just force people to go over the bridge. It's like, oh, hey, this is another way for people to discover your content. And that's just something that platforms don't do. They don't just invent new ways for you to get discovered. And when YouTube dropped that, I was like, at first, obviously, because I'm a cynical bastard, I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, we have stories for YouTube now. This makes no sense. And then I started listening to people talk about how Shorts could be integrated, how you could regurgitate content from long form content and reuse it as Shorts, and then use that to drive traffic. And then the whole conversation of YouTube being a streaming platform, right? Like almost everybody says the YouTube UI needs to be updated. Like it needs to be better suited for streaming. And then at first I was like, you know what? Yeah, it doesn't really fit because of what I'm used to on Twitch and other platforms. And then you hear industry professionals talking about how YouTube has a pretty good idea of how people want to watch content, and that the way that they're integrating shorts and doing autoplay of live streams after shorts, but also tying in VOD content. So it's like you have all of these different little libraries of content that now exist on YouTube, where YouTube's going to be insane in like a year or so. And the metrics that I'm seeing from people that are starting to focus on shorts now is insane. I've only posted like 3 gag shorts, like they're little dinky things. I'm frustrated because I don't know how to include shorts into my workflow yet. I don't know how to make it so that I only need to work 10% more, but still utilize it as a platform that will benefit me as a creator.
I think part of Twitch's problem with discoverability is that they obfuscate clips, right? Like clips, to me, are the single most innovative and important thing Twitch has done for themselves ever. Like it is the only way to find streams you actually give a shit about is through clips. Any other way, you're just shooting a shot in the dark or hoping it's on the homepage, right? And one of the streamers I follow on TikTok is Sweet Tales, I think is her name. And her content on TikTok, I might never tune into her Twitch streams, but I would never know about her if it weren't for her TikTok clips, because she is so funny and so entertaining to watch in those clips. And I'm like, there is no way Twitch would ever show me her content. They don't have a discoverability tool. And unless she's on the homepage and I happen to tune in at an exciting moment in her stream where she's really being entertaining, I'm not going to catch that content and I'm not going to, hit follow. But because there was a clip and because she shared it and I saw it, I was like, I might tune into a Sweet Tales stream at some point. Do you think that what Twitch should do is the same thing that YouTube did? It's like, look at TikTok and just be like, okay, we put clips in an endlessly scrolling carousel and use an algorithm to send it to people that it's going to be the most relevant to. Like, do you think Twitch should do that?
There's a part of me that wants to say yes, but then there's another part of me that the type of content that clips is, and because there's going to be no cross pollinating of content, like no stitching, no duetting, like there might be a comment section, right? I just feel like it's just going to be a carousel of clips that are 30 seconds to a minute 30, which isn't the right length if you want to just keep scrolling. I also feel like maybe it's too late and maybe they should just double down on being the best live streaming platform and then let the other, because like at the end of the day, those other platforms are going to redirect to Twitch. So it's kind of like, do we just let other platforms continue to push viewership towards our platform, or do we want to just try and take over? Like, do we want to release another Twitch app with Curse built in instead of just letting Discord and Gilded do their thing, right? So I feel like I don't have enough industry knowledge to like say yes they should do it or no they shouldn't. But like my gut feeling tells me like focus on enriching the features that you already have and building new features that pertain to live streaming. But also maybe try and do some things that benefit evergreen content for your platform as well. Like highlights and past broadcasts are garbage on your platform. You go to Twitch to be live. So it's kind of hard to say.
I mean, personally, like I think Twitch is one of the few content platforms that has been very single-minded about the type of platform they are for a really long time. Like in terms of features, right? Clips, like I said, is like a hugely revolutionary thing because it creates a means of discoverability that just simply did not exist on the platform before Clips was a thing.
Right.
But you look at YouTube and they're like, they offer a live stream now. And when I stream on YouTube because they don't have a horrendous bitrate limitation. It directly integrates with whatever existing audience I have on YouTube, and it's a dual service platform where like I can create live streams, or I can create videos, or I can even do shorts now. Like it's like a Swiss Army knife of content, and it's all in one place. And Twitch has very much been a platform of like, here's where you go to stream, which is our website, and if you want discoverability, there's clips now, which is fun, but finding them, still you're forced to rely on TikTok, Twitter, the most frustrating thing about that, I think, for Twitch streamers is the fact that Twitter doesn't want you leaving Twitter. TikTok doesn't want you leaving Twitter or TikTok. YouTube doesn't want you leaving YouTube. So they suppress any content that has a link that a lot of people click that takes them off the site. Like if you go live and you're like, hey, I'm live, come check me out on Twitter, and you include a link, because people are clicking that link and leaving the site, they're less likely to get shown that specific tweet unless they sort their feeds by chronological order, which is 100% going away at some point.
Right.
Do you think that what Twitch has done, which is basically force people to rely on other platforms, is good for Twitch? Because you made a really interesting point in that, like, because there's not going to be duets and stitching, because it's all clips from VODs, that TikTok style video content wouldn't necessarily benefit Twitch as a platform. But at the same time, what are they doing to improve the situation? And like, do you think that the track they're on is something that like will keep them competitive and relevant as YouTube and Facebook and other platforms rise up?
So I think that if they, like, the way that they could enhance going down that road, let's say it's not necessarily a curation of just clips. Because like my first thought was, okay, if they've got a never-ending carousel of Twitch clips, right, it's just going to be maybe the most viewed clips, which is the same issue that we run into with live streaming. The most viewed people are at the top of the list, and everybody else is eating shit down below. What if it was they built a web version and a mobile version of a clip editor that gave you TikTok-like features, like zooming in or adding music or text, and then it became like, okay, maybe it's not just a curated algorithmic list of clips. It's people that are taking clips and editing them to something else. Maybe because like the whole part of TikTok is like cut, J-cut, like constantly just going to the next thing. I don't feel like a 60-second clip is gonna be good for that type of scrolling content. So yeah, it's, I would like to see Twitch make a move, but they would have to come up with a way to deliver that content to viewers that is something that doesn't exist yet. It's got to be something new. And like duetting a Twitch clip, the vibes are different. Like if you have somebody sitting in their chair playing a game and then you like come up with a green screen and you're like interacting, I'm sure it could be done, but it's a totally different vibe. TikTok is everybody from this point of view of, oh, my girlfriend's going to bed. Hold on. I'm just going to say, I love you. Good night. Good night. And it's just a different perspective, right? It's like everybody had phones up until TikTok was a thing, but TikTok just unlocked an immeasurable amount of creativity in millions of people everywhere. And to your point earlier, when you were saying like you can make content about anything, I follow a guy who he owns a lawn care business, and he just does content about lawn care and customer service and what type of twine to use in your weed whacker. And it's like, why do I like this? Why am I watching it? And again, it's like the algorithm knows you better than you. And that's why I just tell people to just get out there and start making shit, because one of the craziest things about being in the position I am now is that 3, 4, 5 years ago, I didn't think that I would be interested in making this type of content. But because I struggled for so long and I tried so many different things, I ended up finding, oh shit, I like having conversations with industry professionals in different niches. I like reviewing tech hardware. I like being a part of the beta process. And if I wouldn't have spent time discovering, I would have never landed where I am now. And anybody could probably look at me and go, damn, you've been doing this for 8 years. But it's like, does how long I've spent matter if I finally landed where I should have been in the first place? Because it's time consuming. It takes a really long time. And of course, if you have a full-time job and you're trying to do content, it takes you even longer because you have less time. But back to your original point, I would like to see them do something, but I don't know how they would implement it.
TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, like all these social media platforms and content platforms, except for TikTok, actually, they existed at a time when you could have a niche, and that was the whole point of your website. Like Twitch was live streaming gaming content, and obviously they've kind of relented and embraced IRL content, which is, obviously proven to be a massive success for them. But the platform is still fundamentally the same, like on a technical level. Like obviously they've improved their server infrastructure so the site isn't crashing every other day. But like, you still basically have the same experience as a creator and a viewer that you did 3 or 4 years ago. YouTube's the same way. We're like, yeah, they added shorts and everything, but it's just shorter videos, which YouTube already had in spades. But with TikTok, I think the perception of TikTok as being like this juvenile platform for dancing teenagers comes from not TikTok, because TikTok will show you what you're interested in. And if it's not dancing teenagers, then you're not going to see it. But I think it comes from like Vine and these sort of, random social media video apps and platforms like Twitter that just have like sort of a fixed, like people like view them like they view Twitch, where it's like, oh, well, that's where you stream. If you want to, stream games or whatever, you go to Twitch. And I think the public perception of TikTok is quickly changing because people are realizing it's not the next Vine, or it's not just a dance compilation thing. It's not, just industry plans from the music business. And for me, like the thing that made me realize like, oh, TikTok is actually for me is that I like Vines. I love Vine compilations. 99% of the funny Vines compilations are guys, right? They are dudes making skits or telling jokes. And like the 1% of, women representation in Vine compilations is like, the one time a girl was funny on Vine, or like, something weirdly sexual or whatever. And it's like tuning into TikTok, like when I start scrolling, there are so many funny, entertaining women on that platform. And it's such a diverse range. Like my TikTok For You page is like people with ADHD, comedians doing stand-up, obviously sex workers because I like boobs. And the depth and variety of content is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And I think TikTok solved the problem of our platform is one thing, because that's what every platform has struggled with. It's interesting because I see the same thing happening with tech companies right now, like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, where they're trying to become news destinations. Obviously, you yourself create tech news content, and news content in general has become a huge industry for content creators. But it's also one of the number one sources of like division in America and the world at large, right? Like if you tune into your local news station, they'll do COVID coverage, right? Where they're like, the COVID vaccines just got approved for, children. Here's what you need to know. And they kind of sugarcoat and gloss over the important details, or present it in a way that clearly has some sort of bias. It's like, you should be cautious, whatever. But then the next segment will be like, there's this amazing party that's going on and Friday night, and you should go down. There's going to be thousands of people there and blah, blah, blah. The news always will go out of their way to like misrepresent what's actually happening for the sake of like chasing the same algorithms and clicks and engagement that us average Joe Schmo individual content creators are chasing. Seeing how content creation works. Have you seen that same sort of pattern with news content where it's like CNN, ABC, NBC, all these, Fox, whatever, they are chasing the same algorithms and the same engagement and clicks and viewership that content creators doing other kinds of content chase, because that's how the platforms function. Like to go viral, you have to do certain things to get the engagement. What do you think about the news industry relative to being a content creator?
It's definitely, it's a little scary to me because general mainstream news has always sort of preyed on people with fear and with like slight misinformation and fear mongering. And I feel like when mainstream media realized that they did not have the attention of the upcoming generation, they just tried to swoop into social media and try to do the same thing, right? Like even in our industry with fucking Polygon and Dexerto and their terrible practices of how they report things and how they describe how situations transpired instead of just giving the facts, it drives me fucking insane. There's a quote from Denzel Washington on the red carpet where he said, if you watch the news, you're misinformed, and if you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. So it's like, what the fuck do you do? And I think one of my favorite things about Reddit as a platform is it's headline and news first, and then subjectiveness and opinions after, to where like as you go through the comments, instead of it being like you fucking watch Fox 2 News and then you get together with everybody, your book friend who everybody watches Fox News, and you all just like, oh my god, did you see that? And everybody's just bouncing off of each other. Whereas the internet, you see something and then you go down in the comments and you can kind of force yourself to see other people's perspectives and then build your opinion instead of just having a knee-jerk reaction opinion and then running with it. And some might say that, oh, well, you're not having an authentic opinion because you're looking at what other people are saying before you're coming up with what you want. But it's like, how can you, as a normal human being, see something and react and know everything about everything to form a good opinion? Like, there's just things that you don't think about when you're considering how you want to view a particular event or a news article or something. So that's always kind of been a place that I've liked to go, is, I enjoy how news is delivered on social media in some aspects, because I see what happens, I can read it for myself, and then, as the things with like Fox News is like, how often, or mainstream news, how often do they actually follow up on the stories and correct misinformation? And whereas on the internet doesn't forget, and there's always somebody watching something and something is getting corrected, or it's that part of the cancel culture, because I feel like the people who are always out there correcting people are also part of like the same cancel culture group. There's always people watching to make sure that people are telling the truth, or that the facts are properly represented. And that's something that I appreciate. However, at the same time, that can be extremely overwhelming and exhausting as a social media ingester.
I followed a lot of people that would like retweet and engage with news media about politics. And ironically, it's when Windows 10 added the news and interests toolbar widget thing, right? Like Microsoft came out, they're like, hey, here's news and interests on your toolbar. And I was like, well, I'm turning that off because that's an annoying feature that I'm not one of these people where like Microsoft does anything and I say no because it's different. I'm like, I need to get worked on it, and I get all my news through like, the news websites and social media. I don't need my OS giving me news content that it's probably going to be completely irrelevant to my actual interest in the news. And it made me like, when they did that, I was like, okay, how many other platforms and operating systems have like a news tab or are like trying to be a news destination, like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, even TikTok to a certain extent, Reddit especially. They all have, a news tab. And then Windows 11 came out. Windows 11 has a widgets thing built into the OS. That's the news and interest panel on crack. It's like much bigger. And there's no way to turn the news feed on it off. I have just a weather widget at the top. I just want weather on the widgets. I just want like weather, maybe traffic. I don't know. But below that is a section that you can't disable in any way that's recommended news content, right? Like, here's news we think will interest you. I'm becoming increasingly frustrated with the fact that everything is about news. And it's never about the quality of the news.
Yep.
The perfect example to me is that right now they're doing jury selection for Kyle Rittenhouse's trial. The guy that he shot 2 protesters. He's like a teenager. Like, it's like he crossed state lines. Like, it's a whole ordeal. And he's very clearly guilty. Like, there is footage of him shooting people. And you could argue self-defense, but you could also argue that he knowingly put himself in a situation where he would have to use a gun, and it was specifically because he brought a gun. So it's antagonistic. Like, there's all these, there's no coverage in the mainstream media of this jury selection process. And it turns out that the judge is like, you can't call the people he shot victims because they were protesters and they might have been rioting, causing property damage or whatever. And and I'm like,
what?
Like, news media failing to pick up on fundamental stories like that give you a perspective into just how fucked our judiciary is. That like it blows my mind that they don't cover those stories, because like Ted Cruz today on the Senate floor, they're doing hearings for something. I forget. But basically he said Nazis are okay. Like, he was like, the Nazi hand salute is like, whatever. You cannot be a member of the US government and be okay with Nazis in any capacity. It is fundamentally at odds with the ideology that the Constitution of this country is written on. It is, we literally went to war with another country because they were Nazis. Okay, you can't do that. And yet the only folks covering it are social media. And so my question to you, do you think the world is a better place because social media exists, or do you think that social media is driving the problems in the world today?
I'm so torn, because with the right rules, guidelines, and education, like, I know firsthand how amazing being on social media has been for me. The people I've met, the online communities, the vacations, the experiences, there's so much good at the expense of parasocial relationships, mental disorders, mental health, the long-lasting effects of what exposure to social media at such a young age is going to be doing to our future generations. Right, that's something we haven't experienced yet. We haven't had kindergartners with cell phones yet, and we might have it to where kids are, maybe the social media Facebook age restriction is booted back to 10 instead of 13. Social media is tools to me. If I was not a content creator, I most likely wouldn't have any social media. It is kind of like my stance. Like, as far as like using social media as a tool socially, if you're just a normal Joe trying to live life, it doesn't seem all that necessary. However, there are certain things that I think of on a personal level, and this is an example that I bring up all the time. When I am in need of a plumber, instead of asking my mom, hey, who's the plumber that we've had for 30 years? And getting an answer that he's no longer alive, I can go to the Facebook group for the city that I live in, search plumbers, and find the plumbers that are most requested or most highly rated by the people in my city. You are supporting people that are in your city. You're getting real-time feedback from people that are around you, and there's a track record instead of just going to a phone book and finding the first plumber under P and taking a risk, right? The amount of accountability, like when we've had local businesses that have, fired staff that are people of color, or, firing marginalized creators, and then people rising up and pulling receipts of like video footage of these people like obviously being racist, and it's like, oh, this is the greatest fucking social media shit ever. But again, then you've got the cancel culture side of social media, and we talking about cancel culture before, and how like sometimes people like Valkyrie were like, this seems like for the most part a legitimate fuck up, and she seems remorseful, and she seems like somebody with morals, and I while this is like a huge chunk taken out of her account of her credibility, I'm not going to hold that against her for the rest of her life, right? However, when you have somebody, a king in the Dungeons and Dragons world, who all of a sudden there's been 5 years of receipts of you using your power to take advantage of and sexually harass women. It's like, okay, I'm okay with the world canceling you because you didn't accidentally cheat on your wife and get yourself in a fucked up situation. You actively used your power for years to get yourself ahead of everybody else, and you basically destroyed people's lives while doing it. You deserve to be canceled. You deserve to never have the privilege of the internet and social media and fame ever again. You're good being gone. But there's many other times where cancel culture, like in my opinion, Jenna Marbles, she shouldn't be gone, in my opinion. Just an unfortunate result of those circumstances. So if social media, if we are teaching people how to use it properly, looking at it as a tool, looking at it as a privilege and not a necessity, I think that there's hope for our future to kind of skew how it exists in our world. And right now, it seems like there's so much more negative than good. But I personally feel that the internet and social media has done more good than harm.
Regarding cancel culture, I think talking about it has become challenging because there's really two kinds of cancel culture, right? There's accountability culture, which is this person is doing something bad. They've been caught doing it. Now they're being held accountable. There are repercussions. And then there's just straight up cancel culture, which is this person did something, or I don't agree with this person, or they said something, or they act a certain way, and they should be stopped. Like, we should deplatform them and we should end their careers. And I think there's a lot of overlap, obviously. Like, Keemstar is the perfect example, right? He is I wouldn't say overwhelmingly successful content creator, but he's a very successful content creator, and he's a person that has pushed people to kill themselves. He has harassed, doxed, put people in mortal danger with his behavior. He's toxic. Like, he checks every box for the type of person you don't want to having a platform. And I think the reason he remains on these platforms is because people go after him in the vein of cancel culture, right? Like, H3H3 did a whole video series documenting Keemstar's past behavior and current behavior, and really painted a very elaborate picture of how awful a human being Keemstar actually is. And he lost some sponsors. And that's it. You know, G Fuel was like, listen, we're a garbage company that supports garbage people, but you're just a little too garbage for us, so we're going to back out, right? And I think the difference between social media being good or being bad is kind of nebulous. You know, obviously social media, like, it helps situations like the protests in Iran get coverage when they never would have. And like, you know, I think of Flint, Michigan, which I'm sure is close to home for you since, you know, you live in Detroit, is that no one would have known they didn't have clean water if it weren't for social media. You know, it's like relying on these like traditional avenues of information sharing, like news sites and films and TV shows. It's just not, they're not trustworthy sources of information because they always have an agenda because they're trying to appeal to social media. But at the same time, social media is like the one being like, hey, that's bullshit. But I think ultimately, like, the future of social media rests on, in part anyway, where we come together on like cancel culture and harassment. Like, I follow an artist on Twitter, and she is a realistic, she's a realism digital artist. Like, she does highly realistic and detailed looking portraits mostly, and her work is phenomenal. I'm telling you, as someone that understands what it takes to draw like that, she's talented, dude. And yet her entire career has been stigmatized and full of harassment because there's all these accusations that she just traces, or that she's not talented, or that because she, hits back at people harassing her, that she's like less than or something. And she shared this email recently that she got from a fan who was like, you don't deserve a lick of what you are given. And I admire the fact that you haven't given up yet, because I would have given up a long time ago if I were in your position. And it really resonated with me because I think her story as someone that's getting harassed paints a light on like just how we interact on social media. You don't think about it. And you talked about it, like, changing your behavior when you realize like, hey, people are actually watching me. And like, if I'm mean to someone, it could have repercussions for them, not just for me.
Yep.
And I think ultimately the deal with social media is going to be that we either stop accepting harassment, stop accepting bots, sowing division, stop letting people use these platforms to spread hate, and hold people accountable when they fuck up on these platforms, but also making sure that we're not trying to hold people accountable just because reasons. I think that is why people that deserve to get canceled, like Keemstar, ultimately don't, because people aren't doing it to hold him accountable. They're doing it because it's popular or it's engaging. Like, so much of what people do on social media is driven by like, well, if I do this and it gets a lot of views, I'm going to do it again. And it just happens to be that, especially in Facebook's case, it's being a piece of shit. So,
yep. Did you see that Keemstar's retiring?
Which is like the third time he's done that. I don't believe it.
Yep. I don't either.
So yeah, I mean, that's all I got. Is there anything you want to promote or you want to talk about? Because listen, I know I asked a lot of questions, but you are more than welcome to ask if you want something answered.
No, man, I'm good. I always hate like self-promoting at the end of these things. Like, hey, if you've listened to this and you like technology, you want to come check me out, come check me out. I'm Naaackers everywhere. I'm the most active on Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter, and that's where you can find me. But I had an amazing time, dude. This was a fantastic.
I really appreciate you coming on. Like, I wanted to pick your brain about this stuff, and I wanted to talk specifically to you because I think you are one of the creators that's really at the forefront of what creating is all about, which is sharing knowledge, being open with people, being honest, being vulnerable, and working to understand what these platforms are doing and how they're growing and changing and evolving, because so many content creators just see them focus on like the content or the engagement or the platform, and they don't really consider all the other variables or how what they do impacts their viewers and stuff like that. And I think, like, despite the fact that you're not PewDiePie, that you are onto something that is as important as any other big creator. It's becoming a better content creator is a big deal, because a lot of people start off doing shitty jobs. Either their content's bad or they're a bad person. And you have changed so much over the years, and it's been an honor to talk to you and get your insight into all of this stuff. So thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for bringing me here. I always love sitting down and having these conversations. Anytime you want to have me back, dude, I'm game. Anytime.
Well, that's been Navigators. I'm technically Alex. My guest has been Naaackers. You will find all of his information in the description of this video down below, which is an oxymoron, and I hate saying it, but it just rolls off the tongue so easily. Thank you for watching. We'll be live. We won't be live. Jesus Christ. I will have another episode of this show out eventually. Thank you so much for tuning in if you did, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Take care.